Good morning, one and all. The topic in Reish Samach Vav is about what happens when you're in very you're in a very difficult predicament. Reish Samach Vav.
Oh, some.
When you're in a very difficult predicament and you have now you're stuck on the road. You have things that are valuable. Uh, Very simply money, or it could be other valuables that you can't just abandon on the side of the road while you have to continue your own journey to get to your city, to get to your house. You could already be in the city, and but cities are not small, and it could take a long time, especially by foot or by animal, to get from one part of the city to the other. So Aleph, we'll reread Aleph just so that we're holding, and then we can appreciate Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, which are all continuations or different iterations of a similar case. And then I'll just review the comments also then of the Mishnah Berurah that we read last time, just Bekitsur. I'm not going to read them inside again, and then we'll continue with the comments that we didn't get to. Misha haya baba derech v'kidesh alav hayom v'hayu imo maos. If a person is on the road and the day becomes holy upon him, it becomes Shabbos, and he has with him money. V'yesh lo chamoro, and the circumstance here is that he is with his donkey. V'gam yesh imo eno Yehudi, and he's also traveling or not traveling. He happens to be a non-Jew who's there as the day is becoming Shabbos. So lo yaniach kiso al chamora. If that's a situation that there is a non-Jew available, he should not place the wallet on the back of the donkey, mivnei shehu mitzuveh al shvisaso, because a Jew is commanded about the resting of his animal. Ella no sein kiso la'ino Yehudi laholicha lo l'motzai Shabbos lo chomenu. Rather, what should this person do in this difficult circumstance? You give the wallet to the non-Jew to continue the journey along with the wallet, and on Motzei Shabbos you'll retrieve the wallet from this non-Jew. And even if, let's say, you didn't have a chance to give him any payment in advance to do this job. And I was racking my brain, by the way, what does the payment have to do here with the whole circumstance?
Plus, it's Shabbat. You can't give him money.
Well, that's why if it's Shabbat, there's nothing you can do in terms of giving him sachar. So the Mishnah Berurah we'll see today is going to mention, well, if you it's 5 minutes before Shabbos, you realize you're not going to make it. It's better 5 minutes beforehand to arrange a few things than to do these things on Shabbos. It turns out you're looking up, you're like, oh, it's a little too dark. It's maybe Shabbos already. Then you're stuck. But if you have the foresight that you realize 5-10 minutes before Shabbos is going to start, that you're going to be stuck, better to start arranging things. And one of the things that you should try to arrange is offering schar, offering a payment for this person. We have another chair for. Here, you want to just get up off the chair so that we can get another chair over here? Thank you. And then you'll have a chance to get back on the chair here. Thank you.
That makes perfect sense, though, because we have an obligation to pay our employees, right, the same day, our servants the same day.
BJ was listening to the Torah reading this week. That's right.
Well, yeah, I mean, before also, we have that obligation. But yes, so that would be one reason, because now if you've given it to him beforehand and you don't pay him until afterwards, you've not paid your worker on the same day. So that was one way of doing it. The other one is you've got somebody and you're going to pay him for work that he's doing on Shabbat, right, after Shabbat. So you're taking that as opposed to saying, no, I'm paying you beforehand, and do what you want now. Hopefully,
yeah, and I think that last point is the key here, because it's about saying to the we talked about maybe already a couple of years at this point, a couple of years ago, which was that when you're arranging and you have arrangements with a non-Jew as a worker, if they're hired to do a job, not hired by the hour or even by the day, they're hired for the job, then when they do the job, how they do the job is their business. All I ask you to do is do the job.
And take that position, by the way, in the shul, when people would be vacuuming or shopping.
Oh, the staff.
Well, but the staff were employees, and this is what
correct. By the way, that is their prerogative. By the way, it's no one here, not myself, not the rabbi, not the president, nobody. He is telling the staff here, you have to vacuum on Shabbos afternoon. If they would like, they are more than welcome to come on Saturday night and do it. It is really at their discretion.
Right.
We want the shul to be clean, let's say by Sunday morning, because that's we want to be reasonable, but no one is, there's no expectation that it has to be everything is vacuumed and perfect. Yeah.
It's just
So
people
it's the same
to say, how could this be?
Right. That's and we'll learn also as we get further into Hilchot Shabbos with regards to this kind of a situation of you tell them to do the job and you leave it to them. If let's say you have someone in your on Shabbat, you're not supposed to use a regular sponge, the squeezy sponges, because it's a shlita issue. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But if I have there, let's say there's someone in your house that's not Jewish who's helping, and there's the sponge is there by the sink, but also there's a brush. That's a Shabbos-friendly utensil to clean the dishes. I have no obligation to say to this person that you have to use this as opposed to that. As long as there was a realistic and reasonable option that was available to the non-Jew to do things in a permissible way, but they chose to do it in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do it. That was their choice. So anyway, so let's get back to here though. Here the schar is in order to make such an arrangement. Whereas, like, I want you to do a job. How you get to the job, how you get the job done, not my problem. But I'll see you. I'll see you at some point, 11 p.m. after Shabbos. I'm going to come by. So that's I think that's where the schar helps.
Excuse me, Rob.
Yes.
Seems to me that the job that he's talking about here is a job itself, irrespective of when it gets paid, is to be performed on Shabbos. And I think we'd be running amok of the notion of Amira Liyakum.
So look, they're undoubtedly everything that we're learning in this simon, and I had to remind myself also as I was preparing this, everything we're going to learn in this simon is a situation where the rabbis made a decision that we are going to allow things that under other circumstances we're not comfortable with. We're not comfortable with asking an Jew to do things that we ourselves can't do. Yeah, can you just move up one more time? Thanks. And we're the rabbis here in every scenario we're going to see are going to try to find the best solution, which is the least amount of Shabbos violation possible. We're not talking here about violating Torah mitzvos, and because that would be off the table. What we're talking about here is the rabbis putting aside their own mitzvos in order to avoid a deoraisa. And that's really what Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Aleph is all about. Aleph says here, we read it last time, which is that there are two things you have to be worried about here. Number one is in scenario one. Well, back up. The whole thing is I shouldn't be carrying in a Rishus Harabim things that I'm not allowed to be carrying. Okay? And second is an issue of muktzah, right? The money, the ma'os are muktzah. So I have no Shabbos purpose for them. So I have two issues here. So in order to avoid the deoraisas, because the nature of human beings is such that if you tell me I'm supposed to part with $1,000 in my wallet and put it on the side of the road, if we all took a dose of truth serum and then answered the question of, would you actually part with $1,000 or would you actually just keep it in your pocket and keep walking? And the reality is that people, the principle of the Talmud is Adam Bahul Amamono. People, when it comes to money, are not, they don't always act with the most halachic reasoning because I understand $1,000 is a lot of money. So here we're dealing, Simeon, with scenarios that are not ideal, how to make them less problematic, but acknowledging that it's not perfect. So that's why the rabbis here allowed certain rabbinic things to go, because they wanted to protect Torah law, because they were worried that people would then just continue carrying Bereshus Rabbim. They would just violate, a biblical prohibition. So better here to give it to the non-Jew, which under other circumstances, you're right, we really wouldn't want to do this. We really wouldn't want to do this with a non-Jew. And that's why the schar makes it a little bit better, because sometimes if you at least you pay, sometimes you might say, well, then I gave you a job to do. Now you must say, as you correctly said, you're basically telling them to know to do this on Shabbos, which is also a problem when you're paying a worker and you give them only 5 minutes before Shabbos to get the job done. That's not really giving them an opportunity to do it whenever you want. So it's not ideal, and we're just going to make, and the rabbis here are making the best of each circumstance, given the nature of this situation that has come upon you, and you're stuck on the road as Shabbos begins. It's a good question.
But there's no rationale here for the Shabbos goy.
No, under normal circumstances, this would not be appropriate.
Yeah, but this is not making him a Shabbos.
Correct. He's a
technicality.
correct.
right?
We are trying to knock Isurim down from Deoraisas to Derabbanans, and then Simeon, we're saying we're going to live with that.
Okay.
And not say that we're violating the Derabban here. The rabbis made this rule, and that's why I always like to quote when it comes to rules that are Derabbanan. Hey mamru v'hei mamru. They said it and they said it. They can make rules that sometimes seem contradictory. Here they set aside some of their own rules because they didn't want Deoraisas to get violated, and they were
Okay.
that's what we're worried about. Okay, so we have here. The last part there was back in the Shulchan Aruch. Even if this ends up happening, this whole thing happens after dark, so it's already Shabbos, and then you realize it. Better to then still say to the non-Jew, here, do X, Y, and Z, and I'm just going to walk next to you, sort of.
Where does it fall if that goy is already?
That might actually.
So you're goy, you're not supposed to work on Shabbos.
So the only person who can't work for you on a Doraisa level on Shabbos is the slave, is the male servant or the female servant, and that's a very technical halacha about being. There's a kinyan to make someone an eved or an ama. So I don't think that's what we're talking about here. Here, he maybe you could say that the guy is employed by me, but that becomes an issue related. That becomes rabbinic.
This doesn't say your animal.
Rabbinic laws that are going to be violated. Your animal does say in the Torah.
Right. So
Right. It doesn't say your worker. No, it says avdacha. And I think there, at least the interpretation is that it's literally your eved. Because your eved is your, I'm sorry to say all these things, but this is the reality of Torah law and the world. They were their property. There's a whole discussion that how you are kona and eved. This is not an employer. Employer, that's a schar, and there may be rabbinic issues related to that. When an eved does your work, the eved is an extension of your body, right? And that's why masha kana eved kana rabo, right? If eved acquires something, master acquired it because the eved is an extension of me. Okay. So anyways, in the last part here, he says avali matzah metzia. Okay. So here by matzah metzia, you find a metzia. Not like you went to the store and you found a good deal. here you found something on the ground. Okay. You're like you're walking. It's Shabbos. It's Shabbos. It's Friday night. You're walking. You're like, look at that, $100 bill. Hey. Eino Yehudi, come pick it up. No, you can't do that. Unless you were kona this $100 bill before Shabbos. Then the hashta habikikisa. Then it's like your wallet. But if you come upon this on Shabbos, why can't you say to the guy? But it's interesting. Why actually? Well, the Mishnah will talk about it. Think about it for a moment, and then we'll read it inside. But you'll think, why can't I tell him at that point? Why can't I say? Well, the average person, Adam Bahul Amamono, it's $100 bill. It's not. For me, $100 bill is a big deal. I don't. Okay, no one knows. Put it in my pocket. It's a big deal. Why don't we say like someone will be tempted to put the $100 bill in their pocket? So you know what, the rabbis will just say, you know what, we don't want to deal with the headache of violating Torah laws. If you find $100 bills, you can tell the non-Jew to pick it up. So you think about why is it that the rabbis weren't concerned about that? Because they were concerned in the first place. If the $100 bill is already in my wallet, in my pocket, then I'm allowed to go and give it to the non-Jew. But if it's on the ground, which is equal, it's $100. It's not any different than the $100 in my wallet. That I'm not allowed to tell the non-Jew to pick it up. Why aren't they worried I'm going to pick it up? So the Mishnah will deal with that in just a second. Okay, so again, just reviewing quickly the Mishnah Berurah's comments. Aleph, we had the point about that if you have a donkey that you are renting from a non-Jew, that is still considered your donkey for the purposes of halacha in terms of your animal resting. There are many who hold that schirus is kanya, that a rental gives you is a kind of acquisition that gives you enough responsibility over the animal that it is considered shorcha v'chamorcha. Okay.
But if you're borrowing it, no.
If you're borrowing it, that may be less. But when it no, it's still responsible. I would still say it's a problem because there's still achrayus. Because the only situation that if let's say something happened to the donkey while you were borrowing it, you are reliable for paying, except for one situation of meis mach mas malacha, that it dies in the natural course of doing its work. But otherwise, I think there you do have a certain achrayus over it. And I think that's the idea that even in the case of borrowing, there's a sense of taking on of achrayus. When you sort of pull the animal, like now you are in charge of this animal, and any damage that were to happen to this animal is now your responsibility. So I believe even there, that would be an issue. The question is when you're socher, when you rent, you have actually in that situation the least amount of responsibility taken on because I'm paying, and so yes, certain things of negligence are my issue, but other things may not be as much. But the idea is still that schirus kanya lechumer. At least we are machmir here to say that perhaps you've taken on enough here that you can call this your animal for some purposes. And then we talked about that there's two tracks here, right? There was shvisas behema. I can't have my animal work, do malacha. Number two, there's mechamer. These are two very different issues, but very much at play here. Shvisas behema, there's a deoraisa. Mechamer can also be a deoraisa. Mechamer is leading the animal. If I'm leading the animal, and not even my own animal, by yelling at the animal, by giving the animal a little zetz and saying, no, move. If the animal is moving with a load on its back, so it's carrying a load, then me leading the animal is going to be a problem, as the Mishnah Berurah is going to quote a pasuk from the Torah here. A little later on, we'll get there in Sif Katan Zayin. Lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata uvehemtecha. Also means that you and your animal can't do work together. So if I put a load on the back of the animal and I say, okay, Bessie, let's go, move. And Bessie is very well trained. I didn't touch her. And Bessie's not even mine, by the way. It was a friend's, I wasn't borrowing. It's just, I happen to know the animal. I'm I'm like Dr. Doolittle. I can basically talk to these animals. And it listens, even if it's not my animal, mechamer is an issue. Leading an animal to carry a load on Shabbos is no good. So that's really what we have here. Number one, that even if you give the non-Jew that here, you lead the animal the rest of the way. You can't also then be like, okay, no, move. You can't start saying things to the horse that you know are going to move this animal along. So you have to actually really be patient and quiet. Sif Katan Beis, I talked about this idea of Adam Bahul Amamono. This is the whole explanation that if you don't permit people to do this, then they will violate biblical prohibitions of Yolich Arba Amos Birshus Arabim. And so therefore we allowed these things so that we don't violate a much more severe prohibition. Now, we were in the middle of Gimel, so let's restart Sifkat on Gimel. That you're supposed to give your wallet to the non-Jew. And here he writes the following. V'im yesh lo masa kaved ala chamor o ba'agala. If there is a heavy load on the donkey or on the wagon that the animal is pulling. V'yefshar lo litno le'eno Yehudi. And it's too much for a non-Jew to carry. And nobody can carry this. I mean, it's too much of it. It's not a wallet. Now we're talking about a big screen TV. I don't know. Whatever, you'll come up with the example. And we're going to see in Siv Beis in a moment, and when we get there, I'm going to go slow and very carefully. In order to violate a biblical prohibition of carrying, if you learn the first Mishnah in Shabbos, well, you might remember that it says there that in order to violate a biblical prohibition, you have to have an akira and hanacha. You have to lift up, literally, uproot the item from a resting position, and then you have to then place it down hanacha at the end, and only once there's been an akira, a lifting up of the object, and then a movement of this object, and then a placing down of the object, only then is there a biblical prohibition that has been violated. So
Does that constitute a kinyan?
no. This is just in general on Shabbos, by the way. If I'm carrying my keys, the same thing. There's no permission to carry it in this particular place. My picking up of the keys, moving the keys, and then placing it down, that's the moment when I finally have completed the malacha. So, sorry, which Richie, what did you say?
Yeah, to be any different reshut.
Even in a private reshut?
With your
No, in your house, you can move it however you want. If you go from private to public to private, that's an issue, and you have to have an akira and a hanacha in both. Or or if you're in Rishus Harabim and you go arba amos in Rishus Harabim, then you have an akira and a hanacha. That's a problem. Now, maybe Rabbanon, other things are problematic here, but I'm talking about Torah law now for a moment, because I'm trying to avoid biblical prohibitions. So now I'm going to stand up to do this. So sorry for those of you who are watching on YouTube. If you have an akira, so the animal, the sif base we're going to describe, that the animal also has to do an akira hanacha to violate Shabbos, because the animal has the same laws as me on Shabbos in terms of how it's violated. Okay, so the suggestion is, if I don't, there are sif base, there's going to be no non-Jew. So what's going to happen? I'm with the animal alone. Better, the Shulchan Aruch is going to say is, and the Gemara says, put the load on the animal, but here's how you do it. Ready? The animal starts, I suddenly look, oh, it's Shabbos now. So I'm stuck. My animal is standing here, we were standing too long looking at a map and we couldn't figure it out. So now my animal starts moving. So when my animal starts moving, I place the object on the back of the animal. Therefore, the animal never did an akira, because the animal was already in motion. And then when the animal naturally decides it wants to stop, I quickly take the object off. Now that was a hanacha, but there was no akira. But now, we're stopped. And and then as the animal starts walking again, I slide it back onto the back of this animal. Now, if you successfully do this and actually do it in a way such that you fulfill every word here, that is super impressive, I must say, because you have to catch
something
Yeah.
in real life. Friends did this during the Simon campaign.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, they with each other, not with a mule.
Right, and they didn't want to do an akira hanacha on their own.
Exactly, and so they would toss.
Right,
and then it just they would continue that way so that they could do this, because they didn't have a bound encampment that they could.
And that's an excellent point, by the way. Baruch Hashem, we live in a community with an eruv, and it's an excellent, healthy eruv. But if you ever find yourself in a place without an eruv on Shabbos, and you realize suddenly that you're in the middle of Shabbos, you realize that you go to your pocket and you realize, oh, you're carrying something that you shouldn't be carrying. Actually, what's the best advice at that point?
Hang it up, hook it up to you.
And the best advice is, as you realize it, as you're walking, keep walking. Don't stop.
Don't put it down.
Don't put it down. You're violating the Rabbanans here, but on a D'Oraisa, just keep going. It's better not to actually stop at that point. Keep walking until you get to a place wherever, then you could slide it out of your, let it out of your pocket or whatever. But that's related to this that you just reminded me.
Rav,
yeah.
Rav, excuse me. That is contrary. That is definitely over on a halacha midaraisa, because the Torah says, "Ata uvimhemtecha," you and your animal. The Torah says that. So how are you going to deal with that?
But the animal never violated a Torah law, because in order to violate the Torah prohibition of carrying, you must have an akira and a hanacha. But if the animal is in motion when the wallet is placed on its back, that was not an akira. And therefore, all you're trying to do the whole time until you get to wherever you're trying to get to is you're avoiding both akira and hanacha in one motion. And by doing so, I avoid a biblical prohibition that that the animal might otherwise violate. Therefore, I'm in a better scenario. Again, this is a crazy scenario, but it's a better one. And now, if you're going to say, well, but I put but there was an
That's
akira
right.
I put it on.
You did
So,
it.
Just like the first Mishnah in Masechah Shabbos talks about two people, one who does an akira and one who does the hanacha, and the Gemara says that they're both potter. They are both, that's potter of al-asr, and it's not allowed, but maybe the rabbanan, but the oraita, you avoid a korban chatas, you avoid biblical prohibitions, because neither of us did both an akira and a hanacha. So just like that with the animal, if I do the akira and the animal does the hanacha, that avoids a Torah violation. Now,
Nice try. Nice try.
so anyway,
Not to go to Simeon for Psak Halach.
and so the part here he says is that it's impossible, that the Mishnah Berurah is saying it's impossible to do what is suggested in Sif Beis. And now you can see why, by the way, if you have a big screen TV, you can't start take off and on. It's not going to work. By the way, once this animal
By
starts,
the way,
because
if
once
you
the
have
animal,
big screen TV, you're not moving it on the thumb.
right, yeah, right, yeah. So whatever, and if you have whatever the item is, and it's very large, a wallet I could slip onto the back of the animal once it starts moving. But if you're talking about a big load, the animal just started moving. You think I'm going to successfully get it onto the back of the animal once it starts moving? A wallet I could sneak it on there.
Right.
This is not possible. So he says here that's also not possible.
What about increasing the burden on the Shabbos? The animal, you're increasing its burden. You're supposed to rest the animal.
You're right, but
You're
the
doing
but
something, whatever it is.
the way the animal must rest is the way I must rest. The animal cannot do the third malachos. That's
I get it, but you're adding to its burden by adding.
you are, and midrabanan, it's not, and 100% midrabanan, this is not okay. It's not even, that's not a meaning. Under ideal circumstances, midrabanan, this is not okay.
B'diavad.
This is you're in a bidiyavad, you're living in a bidiyavad world here in this situation. It's not, that's, yeah. So anyway, he says here, so then better to sell before Shabbos. You see 5 minutes before Shabbos, you make a kinyan with the non-Jew. This is your animal now. Better to do that because if I could do that, even better, right? This then because again, if I can avoid my donkey doing anything, better. The non-Jew should carry the wallet. If we're talking about a heavy load that the donkey needs to carry, then I need to give the non-Jew the donkey. Sell it to him. He let him be Kona this thing. I'll give it to him for a penny. I don't, I'm happy to give it to him. I want to avoid violating the Torah law here. Now, if you're not an expert in how to do a kinyan, okay, you didn't go to the Sunday morning shir, you didn't learn how to make a kinyan with how do I do this actually? So yafkirena bifnei shlosha, then they should be hefker, make it hefker in front of 3 people, and if there's not 3 people, well, kopanim beino leben atzmo, at least be mafkir to yourself.
So being mafkir, I remember somewhere in the Bubbas came up.
Yeah.
To be mafkir stuff.
Yes.
Do you need a basin or do you not need a basin? And I think what you can see here,
Ideally, yes, you need 3.
Ideally,
And then b'diavad should be b'diavad. If you're just you and the non-Jew and the donkey,
yeah. Now
then-
when mafkir chametz, right?
when you're mafkir chametz, you do it by yourself. You don't do it in front of Adam.
Right. You don't do it for it.
Correct.
And we
Now
can
you're being.
rely on that.
The earth, the sky, and the donkey.
That's right. The donkey. Right. Very good. Yeah. The az ain't over al isar shvisas behema, because then at least you'll avoid the biblical prohibition of your animal resting. Shabahema eino shelo, because now the animal at least is not yours. The yered min ha'agala. Now, if the animal is pulling also the wagon, you need to get off the wagon. Sorry, you got to walk the rest of the way. V'yizar shelo mechamer, because why? You are not allowed to drive, right? To lead this donkey. Or any animal for that matter. And even if you do all these heterim that we allowed you in this circumstance, you sold everything, or you were mafkir everything. You have to be very careful that you don't give to the non-Jew or on the wagon, put on the wagon anything that things that you took off the wagon on Erev Shabbos, the Aser Litain Le'enei b'Shabbos Almanas Lahotzi, because you're not allowed to give it to the non-Jew on Shabbos on condition um, to give it to me on Shabbos, meaning whatever I tell this guy, here, do this, do that, take this. I sold this to you. You can't tell him, show up at my door. I'll meet you. I'll meet you there a little later tonight. He's saying here, Ella kol masha lokhu min ha'agala, right? The things that I started, that I didn't want, I had to take off, and I had to, you know what? You take this, you hold this, Mr. Non-Jew, because I can't do any of these things. And my animal's pulling the wagon, and so Yishar biyadam on Motzai Shabbos. They need to remain with the non-Jew until the end of Shabbos. You're not allowed to have him on condition that you'll bring it to me on Shabbos.
On Shabbos.
Correct.
Not after Shabbos.
After Shabbos
You
is a
can
different
make that
ballgame.
condition.
Yeah, it sounds like that. Yeah, Yishar biyadam on Motzai Shabbos. Now I go to his house, he comes to my house, whatever. We can deal with that. But Ted, he should come to my house and drop off all the things that I sold him. I was mafkir. I was
on Shabbos.
Yeah, it makes everything into even more of a farce. Like this was all fake, And by the way, it's very problematic. How am I making a kinyan to get it back from him? It's not so simple to make kinyanim on Shabbos with another person that we transfer ownership of an item.
You're doing this pre-Shabbat.
Right. So yeah, you're saying it's almanas. So the condition was made before. Yeah, but
Absolutely. That's what he's talking about here.
Right.
Right.
Also, almanas lahotzi. Right. Right, but then yes, it's talking about making a condition before Shabbos. But part of the problem is lahotzi. Right. What am I doing here? I'm basically instructing him. It's enough. I'm already instructing him basically to violate Shabbos on my behalf. But once it's in a safe place, I'm not going to lose my $100, $1,000 in my wallet. Okay, like I don't. If I'm so paranoid, I can't wait to the extra whatever 23, 22 hours here at this point. Like we're saying, like okay, that's not okay. You're telling him to violate an isser on your behalf when it was unnecessary at this point. You'll get your money back. It's coming to you. Arab Shabbos. Mosai Shabbos. Okay, this is. Last part here. He says V'da Damashikasav, and then what it says at the end, V'afilu lo nasan lo sachar azeh ba 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 ba. That if it's before Shabbos starts, so Tov Yosa Shehitain Sachar. Better to give him some payment and say, here's your job. Your job is to take my stuff and to watch it, and I'll see you. Shalom Al Yisrael. I'll have a good day. You walk and I'll walk. We don't have to talk to each other about anything. It's better. If not, again, it's still better to give it to him and not violate the prohibitions yourself. Okay. Sivkat on Dalit. He deals with this with the language here of Afal Pishin Asano Lilo Mishachashech. And if you already gave it to him after dark, so it's mutter. So Nakot Lashon Diavad, right? And even though you didn't give it to him until it's dark, it's like you should have given it to him before it was dark, right? Mm-hmm. So Nakot Lashon Diavad. Here he's utilizing the language of after the fact language of the B'diavad language. Of course, you should have arranged this. It's better to have arranged this before Shabbos started than to arrange this on Shabbos. Mishum Isser Muktzah, because there's also Muktzah going on here. Right? You're talking about a wallet, talking about the money. Better to have transferred the money to the non-Jew before Shabbos started. It's an obvious statement here. That's all he's saying. That's why he's saying Afal Piv that it's happening on Shabbos. It's still mutter. Okay.
Which is a midirabanan, which is a midirabanan prohibition.
Correct, but the more right, correct, Simeon. The more we can avoid, the better. Meaning here we're in less than ideal circumstances, so we're trying to minimize the amount of bad. That's it. The bad, not bad. I don't know. It's not proper English, but the amount of prohibitions that we're violating. Yes, Tommy.
What's the extension of this to a robot that's moving around? And I put something on it, and then later on somebody takes it off, or I can take it off. Yeah, but I mean, there's an extension. Is there an extension to this?
Yeah.
Look at the delivery those machines, the vending machine.
What do you mean?
Well, that they shut them off.
That's a vending machine. I'm not talking a vending machine.
So look.
That's moving around all over.
So, the Mishnah Berurah thought very.
Your rubus and you put it on. It's following
the Mishnah Berurah was he looked into the question about AI and robots. He didn't decide to weigh in on this one. No, that's an interesting question. Look, I whenever it comes to utilizing technology that is set into motion before Shabbos, it goes back to an argument that Rav Moshe Feinstein had with most of the other poskim. Rav Moshe was not enamored with the Shabbos lights, on a timer. If anything that's on a timer, he felt like it's like well, he actually compared it to Amir Lenochri. Except this time, I didn't tell it to a non-Jew. I told it to the machine, which I set into motion. Just like I could tell my non-Jewish neighbor to come over. Can you come over at 7 o'clock and do blah 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 blah, which you can't do, right? So he thought, right, and so he said, same thing. Well, you're going to tell my thing to go on at 7 o'clock. Like, who said you have the permission to do that? That's what Rav Moshe felt. Well, others felt, no, there's no. A Shabbos a timer is not a non-Jew, and if something is set into motion from before Shabbos, most poskim felt that this is not a problem. That's why Shabbos clocks are a mainstay in most Jewish homes, and so I would think here, without having thought too much about this question beforehand, that if you have a robot, you're probably in a better scenario here than even giving it to a non-Jew. But I without thinking through all the iterations of this one, it's hard to anticipate what could be the problems here. I mean, I don't understand how robots exactly. Obviously, such things exist, by the way, already. Undoubtedly, these things exist in our world. That there's a robot that probably can be trained to follow you, to follow your motions and move, exactly programmed to follow your motions and movements. But that's the problem, see, because if the motions that you're doing are on Shabbos, then that's a bigger problem now, because I'm actually I'm the one who's causing it.
Yeah, right.
But
Right.
the Shabbos timer, whether I move, I don't move, I sneeze, I don't sneeze, it's going to do what it's going to do, what I told it to do before Shabbos. But AI, robots, and are my
You give them commandos.
bleacher, like my nosebleed seats, view of this is that they very much interact with us, and that may be that may actually be a bigger problem, because it's taking its cues from my actions. Look, I'm sure there's a way to program the robot to do it exactly in a certain way and avoid all those things. But
this argument way back with JTS, and when they really were halachists at JTS, right? When you're talking about the microphone, right? So the question is, is it voice activated? Well, if it's voice activated, it's clearly a problem. But what if the microphone is on all the time? It's not voice activated, right? Halakhically, they're looking at it and say, well, I'm not activating it and so forth.
Right.
It's something that you should be able to do. We didn't come down that way.
Correct.
But they were very halachic in reaching that conclusion
Right.
that you could do that, right? And so that's what you're talking about here. I think it's excellent observation that you made. If I'm causing it to move because it's following my action, I think you have a problem.
That's the bigger problem.
Activated.
If it's like a Shabbos timer,
you can put something on a conveyor belt, in other words.
Right.
Let's say for whatever
It's
reason,
going all the
So
time.
what about a train or a bus that makes specific stops, whether there's somebody there or not? Opens the door, waits 10
Goes to
seconds,
down, right.
closes
They
it, and
made
keeps going.
that determination in Toronto that it was okay.
And
So
in
as long as you had a
Village and-
ticket that covered the entire period, whether you used it or not, didn't change.
so there is
Thinking about our hill,
there is more wiggle room when you're talking about a situation that things are going to happen, whether you like it or not. Some people with the bus question, they will argue, as somebody here on the table said a moment ago, or maybe Simeon said, that you're adding to the load. Does that require more? Oh, sorry, it's Bruce. Bruce said it, right? It's going to more of a load, therefore, has more horsepower to move the bus if it weren't affecting how things function, and the stopping happens no matter what, like almost like I guess a subway is a better example of like things that will always open, doors will always open, whether there's anyone getting on or off or not. So there is what to talk about there.
When you're in a subway, there's somebody doing it. But for example, like the airport, the
right?
Oh, those
No,
the air trains.
air trains.
Yeah,
There's
they just-
nobody. It's all automatic.
It's on.
In the subway, that person is doing it no matter whether you're on it or not,
Right.
and started well before Shabbat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look,
so-
They're
it's
doing it for you.
exactly. So there's under in circumstances where there's a need. So there's what to work with there. Putting it that way. That's how I'll politically put it. There's what to work with there.
But you can
Yeah.
always get hit with the Marasayan that's like.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
gigantic
That's exactly why. Yeah,
cover
that's why I said there's
for
what to
saying
work
no.
with. That's why I said if there's
gigantic cover
a
for
circumstance,
no.
someone has a difficulty walking, or there's whatever, then there it helps. Let's put it that way. It helps.
Is there another million after 8:30?
There happens to be a 9 o'clock today with the teams. I don't know if Kobe happens to be going, but you're more than welcome. That's where I'm going to be down.
No, that's fine. I get that. Stick around.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so hey, this was the question I posed to everybody earlier, which was that if you find a mitzvah, you're not allowed to. Why not? What's the difference? $100, $100. So Mishnah Berurah says here, Kevin de lo tarachba. See, it's the human psychology. Since I didn't work hard for it, lo tarachba. This is not something I worked hard for. Lo tarachba. Lo chayes aleh. Allah. I don't have the kind of connection to it. And I would never violate Shabbos for something that I didn't work hard for. It's $100 I didn't have coming to me. And so at least, not every human being, but most human beings, the Chazal felt, they would have the self-control to not violate that one. And and if you didn't, that's even if I don't permit it, they weren't worried that and that's why they didn't feel like they need to permit it to let you give it to the non-Jew or say, hey, pick that up for me, because they didn't feel that was something that people would violate more often than not. Is that 100% of people would act like that? Okay, I don't know, but at least there was a feeling that that this is something that a person could overcome, as opposed to I have it in my wallet, I earned that money, I carry that money with me, and now I have to give up on it. That's not something that people are going to so easily part with.
So you're walking down the street and you see a diamond ring,
Yeah.
and it's a question of
How big
Hashavas
is-
Aveda. You
How
gotta
big- Is there an error?
pick it up and send out an email after Shabbos saying,
Right.
I
but
found
you're
this
still
on the
picking it
street.
up.
does it belong to you? If so, what are the identifying
Oh, that's-
characteristics?
that's-
You
how do you-
determine, and then you don't get an answer. And it turns out that you can keep it because it doesn't belong to
What
you.
about the Shabbat
So
Aveda?
have you retroactively?
Well, on that point, she is trying to take care of it by putting out a PSA. She's sending it out a public announcement.
Getting
Look,
a different Gemara.
A ring is not money. A ring is not money.
The
A ring,
diamond ring? Come on.
a ring is, but a ring is jewelry.
It's an
Jewelry, but the thing is, jewelry is
When you buy it, yes, when you're trying to sell it.
right, and jewelry is worn, right? Even if there was no eruv, you could wear a diamond ring because you wear it,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to your wallet, you forgetting the money issue. That's carrying. Wearing a ring, the Gemara has a machloket, fascinating machloket, is wearing a sword on your. I used to wear I don't know, like a belt, almost like the sword would go like this into the thing. So the machlokas, can you carry the sword? Can you not carry it? Is that considered carrying or not carrying? Well, why wouldn't it be carrying? It'd be like carrying any weapon with you. And why? One opinion is that, well, it's like tachshitin. You walk around, everybody walks around with a sword. It's like a style. So sometimes it depends on style. Also, like if a person has, bless you, Yair, they have glasses. Is glasses carrying? I'm carrying it on my body. No, by the way, we even say it like this. I wear my glasses. It's a part of my malbush. So with a diamond ring, I actually think that there are very few issues in picking it up.
All right, a very
Because-
fancy feminine bracelet, and you see it. You would
Yeah.
never wear that.
No, but it's in the category. Anything in the category of
You're
jewelry.
being very presumptuous.
Right, anything in the category of jewelry. No, but and anything in the category of jewelry is not muktzah. It's not. Yes, it's valuable, but it's not in the category of mos. It's not money, even though it can be turned into money. So therefore, anything that's of great value like that, I actually think you have an obligation to pick it up and try to find the owner of this lost object.
It's a good one. If it's a feminine object which men usually don't wear, then it doesn't. You can't consider it as a.
But you see, the problem is that it's not a problem. The good thing is here that it's in the category of clothing. So even though I won't wear it, I'm not going to wear the pearl bracelet. It's not muktzah. It's not. There's no klisha malachtul. There's nothing. It's actually it's a perfectly usable item on Shabbos. Now I might not want to use it because it's not my taste, but somebody else very well could use it. So therefore, there's no isser hanging on this thing, right? And therefore, I can pick it up, and I probably should pick it up, and then I walk to shul and ask, does anybody? By the way, this happened. It was inside the shul on the last day of Pesach. Someone came up to me and said they found this the hoop earring, one, and I said okay, I'll make an announcement. So I think before I made announcements at the end of shul, I said if anybody lost a hoop earring, and then Suzanne Barrett, she touched her ear, she goes, oh, and she goes, oh, me. And so so this person who had picked it up returned. They got the mitzvah. I was a shaliach. I didn't do it. Wasn't my mitzvah, but got the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. But just because and actually it was a man who picked it up, even though he wasn't going to wear an earring, presumably. So.
But the moment you find it with Sia, you become a shomer.
Correct. You have some responsibility to.
Once you're a shomer, it's then you have all the responsibilities and ownership. Really,
yeah, you do take on responsibility. The question then becomes: this is separate from our issue now.
Pick it up and you put it on the donkey, right?
Oh, you're saying, so yeah, if you're in a situation, that's why I thought you were going to go with this. If you're in a situation where you're unable to pick it up because the carrying is an issue, then the answer is that you don't have a responsibility to pick it up, and therefore you don't pick it up. Not because that the Torah says you're not allowed to look away from a lost if you see a lost something I think if you see a lost object and you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, you're not allowed to turn away and be like, oh, I didn't see that. But here, I think the idea would be you really should remember where it was, and either yourself come back or make an announcement in the local community. Say, if anybody lost a it was there. I saw it back when I was violating Shabbos. I came late. I happened to see it there. Yes, I think that you wouldn't be able to pick that up because it's not yours. And that's why you don't have that connection with it. That's why the rabbis wouldn't have permitted it.
Excuse me, Rav.
Put on the phone again, okay?
Right?
What?
No roof.
There's no a roof there. Yeah.
But this was
Yeah.
our situation was on Yom Tov.
That's right. The earring that was Yom Tov. That would have been a different story anyway. Okay.
Rav.
Yeah.
According to the final point that you arrived at, there is no conflict between which is a losa say midaraisa, and hashavas aveda, which is an asay midaraisa. You don't pick it up. You expect that $20,000 diamond ring to be there, and you tell the owner it's around the corner on the sidewalk, and no responsibility.
Yeah, look, that's the hard part of this, but think about it like this: you have a mitzvah saseh and a mitzvah lo saseh, and yeah, we sometimes like to say aseh doch lo saseh, but that's in unique circumstances. It's the Gemara in Yevamos talks about it in the first parak. It's not, yeah. It's a hard one.
What if it's the community?
Okay.
What was that?
What if it's a significant community?
Meaning it's going to put the community at risk, financially. Look, there are I don't know, say Terim. There's more as we go through Hilchot Shabbat. There's more dispensation to violate the rabbinic laws when there's great financial, consequences as a result. The only thing is here that there's also no guarantee that this thing, not to say that we should only care about the Jewish community, but how do we even know this belongs to a Jew? How do I even know? Right? It's against the crown. Right. Yeah. So look, if there was really circumstance where you found a Sefer Torah or something like that, then okay, so then maybe it's a different story. We're talking about then there are other mitigating circumstances that maybe it's okay to ask a non-Jew to violate certain derabbanans, but generally speaking, that's not going to be the case. That's not what we want, at least.
Even for you, and only on the Shabbos, something like you said, a Sefer Torah, not even.
Yeah, so I'm saying that might be a circumstance where you tell them to pick it up, and to carry it on your behalf, because that means something that means like that's a I don't know, there's a Torah in a community, maybe there's whatever that when you start to get into when there are extremely valuable items, there's room in other areas of halacha in Hilchot Shabbos, where that makes a difference. Not that they say that should be the be all end all. I was going to read Sif Beis. I don't know if people have the time. I was just going to read.
Rabbi, thank you so much.
But maybe it's a little bit late now already. So we'll again. Sif Beis is that funny case of you trying to play games to avoid violating the Oraisa, and really having excellent skills to read your animal, know that your animal is going to take that first step. It takes the first step. You put the item on, take it off, put it on, take it off. Yeah, next week. It's a whole to do. And then from there, we're going to start making this scenario. We're going to change the scenario. It'll be what happens if it's you, a donkey, and a cheresh shoto or a katan. So you have people who are in a category where they're pater for mitzvos. What happens if you have only 2 out of those 3 categories? What happens if you have only 1 of those people in the category? What do you do in each of these circumstances? And if you are in a situation where none of them are there, and this is what we're going to talk about, you can't carry it more than 4 amos, and you're going to have a very interesting scenario where you walk, stop. It'll be we're trying to do the least amount of damage in each of these scenarios, so we're going to talk through all of them, and hopefully we'll never find ourselves in these scenarios. Have a great day, everybody.
You too, Bob.
Rob, thank you.
First grade in Hebrew school.
Thank you.
Cousin was talking about this issue. And remember, he said, there's a Jew who's walking home from shul on Shabbos, and he sees $1 in the street. Remember, this is the 50s.
Yeah.
He sees $1 in the street. And so he knows he can't pick it up, right? So he goes over and he stands on it, right?
Oh, well.
And he just stands there. And the cop comes along and he said, you can't loiter here. And so the Jew explains, well, I'm an observant Jew. I can't pick this up, until the stars come out and so forth. So the policeman took out his billy club, hit him over the head. The guy saw stars, picked up the $1.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It's an old one, right?
That was good.